Okay, I've added a little bit more green along this edge, and I will dry brush and even some of that out a little later, but I really would like to get some more color into this stem area of the specimen. So I am going to start with a little bit of this cadmium yellow and burnt sienna mix with a little bit of ultramarine in it. And I'm going to start to lay in this shape more or less as a flat color, maybe with a little bit of gradation. Not too much texture at this point. And then soften up my edges. This is still in the early stages. And I'm pretty much working it a little bit on the wetter side, allowing color to kind of flow into itself. And as you can see, it still needs to go a bit darker. Now, if it gets too linear like that, just wet your brush and move it around a little. Because at this point, you're not working very wet, so if you add water to whatever's on your painting, and you've just done it, you can get it to manipulate a little bit just by playing around with it. And I think I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to add another layer of yellow. Especially in the areas that are shadow areas. And again, I'm basically working on a dry canvas, although because we've been working on this all day, there's definitely some dampness in the underlying paper, because yellow in general is so forgiving. It'll blend very nicely. And if you see an edge right away, soften it up with a little clean brush. Alright, we'll leave that alone, and initially I'm going to use this shadow color that I used in this area to fill in some of this shape on the end. It's obviously going to have to go much darker, and it is my guess that we will probably have to add a little bit of winter violet to this whole combination of colors in order for it to get dark enough so that it really looks like the banana. We actually take some winter violet, and while it's wet, drop in some areas that look really, really dark, leaving some areas a little lighter so that we create a little sense of dimension. At this point, the banana is almost to the point of finish. It still requires some detail work in this area, which is actually probably one of the most interesting parts of this banana. I will probably add a bit more shadow in this area, since this will be our highlight area, and maybe another coat of cadmium yellow and burnt sienna, just to bring the concentration up a little bit more. Now, where I've done this real dark spot, I'm going to lighten it up just by adding a little water to the edges so that they kind of bleed together some, and then take some of that which I've lifted and move it to another spot which is also kind of dark. This gets to be a little time consuming, but because you really have to look at what you see in front of you so that you get a good representation of what it's all about. You can't just arbitrarily put stuff in there. You want to try and put in as much as possible so that you get a sense of what this is all about. Most of this is dry brush or just a slightly damp brush, or you can control the amount of paint going down. Now I may just put just the slightest bit of wash over the whole thing, just to tone it back a little. So now I'm going to put another layer of yellow. I want to leave a light edge on this side, so I'm going to take a nice diluted edge of yellow, and along this edge I'm just going to add a bit more yellow. Make sure I feather that edge out with a little clean water. And then I'm going to add just a little bit more yellow underneath here so I get that light edge. Okay. Hope this helps for you to see what you need to do in order to paint. Again, remember, yellow is very forgiving. It doesn't necessarily want to be lifted, but you can put it on in thin layers, and the blends usually blend very nicely. You don't have to worry about you know, too much blotchiness. It's easy to kind of fix it as you go along.